so ago, Pam offered to do, she was such a Flipgrid convert or evangelist that she was like, I want everybody to know about this. And she said she would be more than willing to do a little webinar or a workshop for us. So I think you'll find this both intriguing and hopefully even inspiring. So I just want to thank Pam for being here today, and thank ESIS for getting it scheduled for us and organizing it. And take it away, Pam.
Yeah, thank you so much. So again, I think most of us are tired of the dead, what I call dead discussion board. I mean, I think the whole point of the discussion board really for me in an online class, and I actually am using it in my hybrid class as well. So for my hybrid, I'm teaching 1 day a week in person and then the other on ground, one on ground and one online. So I think that what, at least my intention for the discussion board is so that students have that moment, like the moments in class where we ask them to pair up or get into a group or talk to somebody next to them, and they're working together with somebody. They're having a natural conversation with somebody. And I know sometimes people structure their discussion boards a little differently, and that's not me to judge like how somebody wants to use that discussion board. But generally, I feel like this is the one time when I, especially for the online environment, where I can really insert my own personality and get to know the personalities of my students. And so I think most of our students, as you know, are using Snapchat, FaceTime, something that's quick, something that's easy, something that's accessible. The beauty of Flipgrid, in my opinion, is that you can use it on a computer, you can use it on your phone, you can use it on your tablet. Definitely, we know our students are attached to their phones. So this way, you know, it's always there. It's there. They can use it. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Actually, that's not the one I want. So hold on just one moment for me. I am going to start here, just one moment. Can you see Zaina?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know what I just did. I mean to make this larger. So here we go. Okay. So I'm just going to let this run for a second. This is for anybody that maybe hasn't seen it before. This is just to give you an example. And again, you're going to see students. In, I have one student in particular this semester in the hybrid class who always goes out to her car to record. And it's kind of like a joke, because every time she like has a new air freshener or something, she has something new in her car. So it's kind of like, what's new in my car? The other thing that I find that students are busy doing in Flipgrid is they are trying to be the first ones out, which I think is kind of exciting, because they will literally comment on, oh my gosh, you got out like 2 minutes before I did. I thought I was going to be the first. Like I don't think it needs to be a competition, but I think that they are aware, that they become keenly aware. And I think that that's another fun aspect of this. So I'm just going to let this run for a moment. So you can see, this is obviously in somebody's room. And this is just an example of what you might get when you use it.
I found that the universal theme of Pan's Labyrinth is definitely courage. You see a lot of different examples of courage throughout the whole film, and through like different characters in general. So first, you see it with Ophelia, obviously, because she has to complete these tasks to prove her worthiness of being the princess, and she goes and does these like scary things. Well, for a child, I guess it would be, and she goes in the woods, and she's just really, she has a lot of stuff that she has to do, and it takes courage. I would also say Mercedes and the doctor, they're very courageous because they had to, or because they were on the opposite, working for opposite sides, and it was definitely putting their own lives in danger, trying to keep that from the captain. And then at the end, we see courage with Ophelia stealing.
Okay, so that just gives you like, that's not even, that's a minute and 55 in. And I think honestly, you could all hear that, right? Okay, so you can, like, she's engaging. This is not just fluff, like she's engaging and she's getting equal engagement back.
Hey, Zana, one of the words that stood out to me in your response was courage. when I looked at the what courage was in the dictionary, it means the ability to do something that frightens someone. Throughout the film, we are reminded constantly that Ophelia was met with her imaginary demons. And I felt like at the beginning, she took the first step in fighting those demons by discovering the labyrinth.
So I just want to point out, so she is not only, she's engaging, right? Direct response to Zaina. She is also immediately engaging, talking about a character, right, in the film and giving examples for support. This is the thing we want. So while this is not a paper, right, this is still somebody who is following those same rules that we would expect in a paper kind of situation, right? We have the setup. Here's where I agree. Here's where I took courage from this. That makes sense. This is how I related this. So we're still getting that feedback that we would expect if somebody was replying in a written format, but also the kind of conversation that we might expect in a classroom when somebody turns to talk to somebody else, which again is one of my major, this is one of my major goals in this course, to have that connection between peers in a class without it being stiff and just written. I also want to say something else about this. I really do believe that Flipgrid promotes that whole kind of ownership of an idea, right? So you're not going to have these kind of, sometimes these snippy conversations that occur in that written form on the discussion board. I feel like this, you're owning your opinion and you're also owning who you are, having that face accompany what your comments are really also helps deter those weird, for lack of a better word, trolls on the keyboard, right? You kind of keep those at bay and you really start encouraging those interactions. Okay, so I'm going to move on to just to give you some other examples. So here we have a prompt that they're, and again, I'll show you what it looks like on the grid. I'm just going to give you some examples of the student interaction first, and then we'll go back to actually looking at the grid and how you set it up and how I have it set up and how that might work with gradebook and all of that coming up. So this is the primary, right? This response, this kind of call and response, right? You have a prompt. Somebody is the initial post is going to be theirs, and then they have those peer responses after that, right? So that's an example of this. But then I also have another.
Hi.
Okay, so today
now I have two things going. Hold on.
Wait 1 hour of time. He's not discovering full art of life.
Oh, no.
Down through the art gallery.
One second. Slight hiccup right there. Just 1 second for me. Had too many of them going at once. Here's another example. Of course, that would be too easy for it to go perfectly every time, but it's all right. We got this. Here we go. So here's another example. So I have the one that we just explored that was for a film class. This is for the Curves Women in Art class. And so they have to create a collection ad. Eventually, it's going to lead to them creating a virtual gallery, which I will also show you how that gets posted. But the reason I'm bringing up some of these examples is, one, we have the regular prompt where someone is just talking like they would to Snapchat, FaceTime, any of those kind of apps. And then we also have, you can do a PowerPoint in here with a voiceover. You can also include images, which I will also show you next. And then you can also include a hyperlink. So I'm just going to let this one run for a second. This is another example of somebody's work for the course. And there's no sound. Just 1 second. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Where is the sound? Here we go. Let's try again. Nope. No idea what I've done. Maybe
this one captures
there we go.
the eternal
Northwest.
The other ones are still running and I have no idea why. Any suggestions there, Isis, on what I have done wrong that I still have other sounds, even though they are not on my desktop currently.
Do you have the previous browser open with those videos you just played?
I do not have those open on my browser.
Is anything playing below that video?
I do not see
The
that.
responses?
Nope, no responses. Let me try again. Here we go. Try again. This is just Marie's. I don't think Tyler's is running. None of these other ones are running.
That's naturally how it just curls
Apple
up.
Dixon
But then
Ragdoll
over here on the
1980.
left side, after
No,
using
Apple
the
Dixon
toothbrush
is
and
from
I don't even know what video that is. It's like a completely different. Okay, but I'll just show you. I'll just show you images. So clearly she has created this cute little, she has created an image, right? Looks like the news. And she's talking about her art exhibition as if it is being featured on the news as something somebody should go to. So that's another example of the creativity that can be fostered in that way. If you notice here, this is another prompt. You can all see this, right? Even though we can't hear them. Okay. So this is another example of Tyler has gone ahead, instead of making a PowerPoint, he's made the choice of just putting the images up and talking. And then he actually does this, right? He points to the images as he's talking about them. This particular prompt has to do with find an academy, an art academy that features or allows women to study there. And then one of their prominent artists at the time. And so he has done that. He has shown paintings. He has shown the academy. He's given a little research on both. So again, you could still be pretty kind of stringent in what you require. It's all about, do the prompts differ that you want to do? Or do you always want to have them do a PowerPoint? If they do a PowerPoint, clearly they can also do works cited. They can include a hyperlink, which I will show you here. Marissa has included a hyperlink. This particular hyperlink in the course, they are expected to create a virtual gallery. And so they go ahead and they link. So immediately, so instead of giving a huge, like having to walk somebody through their art gallery, they can just link it to the art gallery, let the viewer have the experience. But this will take them directly. And I've gone ahead and tabbed that out too. This is her art gallery. This is one of the first pieces on her tour. She's elected to use the outside gallery to show her work. And then of course, by linking that gallery, it allows the people to immediately experience the gallery and then respond. Just FYI, the reason why there are no comments on hers is because she is the set example now in all of my classes, right? So they're usually not going to respond to her. They're going to respond to each other, but they recognize that as an example of how the hyperlink works and then what the gallery looks like. How am I on time? Okay, it's 15 minutes in, but because I'm not showing you all the videos because of the sound, I will stop right here and just ask you if there are any questions so far about like how you think you might be able to integrate this into your own class. Any questions about how this works grading wise, what it looks like. I can go ahead and kind of come out to the groups page. One of the pluses that I thought for, in fact, Candace mentions that like I was a huge supporter of Flipgrid, but she is the one who actually mentioned it to me. She was out on sabbatical and they canceled VoiceThread. I don't know if any of you were using VoiceThread, but they canceled that integration that was happening in courses, and VoiceThread were working together in that grade book. And when they canceled VoiceThread, I had set up VoiceThread this way so that I would have it, and then they canceled it and I didn't know what to do. So I figured, while there are things that we can use, can somebody, is anybody else using something in courses right now that's familiar? I think you can do something like this within D2L. I haven't really played with it because, again, I was a little gun shy from setting up all those voice threads and then having it canceled. And I like the idea that Flip, I can access this no matter, like it's attached to me. So should I go to another university, or should, let's say this was an integrated thing into D2L and it was canceled again, I would still keep it. All of these would still be mine, would still be set up. And it's a lot like the courses shell. I think Karen Hahn is in here. I know I'm not supposed to call it the shell, but I can't help myself calling it a shell, that we copy over, right? We copy over as we make changes to our course for the better. As we do that every semester, we save them, right? And copy them. So the same thing is happening here. I tweak a shell, it remains out here. I can copy it for future courses. So you can tell, like, I've been using this from, August 2020, right? I think I was using it before then. I just changed, I think, the email that it was associated with. So now they're all out in one place. It's great. It's great for reference. It's great to have that ability to just have it stored. You can pull it up wherever you are. Let me stop for a second and ask if there are any questions, or if there are any applications that you need help with thinking about, like how you might be able to use that, what assignment you could use it with, how friendly is it with D2L. I can show you how I embed it into my course. I'm ready to take questions.
Pam, could you go back to your previous screen for a second?
This one?
No, the one where you showed all of the different groups that you have.
Yes.
So all of these groups are specific classes. So the first one, Curves Fall of 2022, is a class. Can you click on one of those and show us how?
Yeah, these are
up?
active. Yeah. So again, they're just like the modules that you have in D2L, right? So you can go ahead and you just create them. I'm kind of hesitant to touch anything that I'm active in, but I mean, I can play with this one right here. Like, this is fine. So like, let's hypothetically see. So I have these all set up in modules, right? We're all very familiar with that 8-module model, right? That we've moved to, especially to kind of match up with the online version. But like, let's hypothetically say I'm building one. Let's just go there, right? So I'm going to say topic, because that's what these are. These are considered topic, right? These modules, I'm calling them modules, but they're topics. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to add it. Let's create whatever pictures. And then you can, oops, wow, it'd be nice if I could type correctly. So I'm just, again, here, what I would be doing is I would be putting in the title for a module, right? And then here I'd be putting in a prompt, right? And I'll go back to that in a moment. I'm going to allow the recording time. As you can see, the longest is 10. And I do set mine, by the way, at 10. It's very rare that it goes to 10. The only time they ever hit 10 sometimes is if they're responding to somebody's gallery. Sometimes they get a little verbose because they're moved, which is lovely, but it will cut you off at 10. In general, though, you're not going to have those grids go over 10 because, again, you have to grade them. You have to view them and you grade them. Okay, so I'm just going to set it at 10 like I normally do. These attachments, that's usually where you see, like, of course, I'm teaching visual courses, so I like to have pictures, images in there. So that's where I'm going to add that. I'm going to post the topic. It also, when I do that, will provide a link. So again, I'll show you in a second what I do with that link, but you copy the link and I usually put that right into D2L, right? So here's the link. So it'll take you out. That's the only disadvantage that I think could be perceived by anybody in this training is that there's not an integration currently between Flipgrid and D2L gradebook. That's the only downside that I can see so far. But we can still put those links in there and those discussion posts so that they know that they can go out to it. You can also have an overall, there is an overall click. So see this copy join code? If I do that, then it will basically also generate a code that will link to all of the modules. But I like to, just like probably many of you, like to stay organized. So in the actual module, I will have a link. And let me jump to that really quickly. I will come back, I promise. Let me show you how I do that. And again, everybody is seeing this, right? I'm assuming everybody can see. So here's module 1, and you come down. And again, I don't know how most of you do this. I know everybody has a different way of doing it, but you can tell here's the module 1 musing, right? And so right here you have the flip, and that flip will take you right to where you need to post on the flip. Okay. You can come in from that way as an instructor, or you can come in, just click on discussions and you can add them here. I find that when I'm building for a semester, this is the easier way to insert. And if you notice, it says, do not put them on the discussion thread. I don't want them on the discussion thread. All of the things should be happening within Flip. And I think Mark is in here. So Mark can attest to the fact that it becomes a little bit of a challenge when you have people that are trying to do like quality control for a course that might have Flip, because they don't necessarily see it in the discussion thread. They have to go out to Flip, and you can allow them permissions to see it, but they can also just get out there and look just like a student could. They wouldn't have the same view that you would as an instructor, but they do have student view. How I grade generally, I can't really show you because, right, that would be like confidentiality, but I can tell you, I go to progress. You all know that, right? Progress, go to grades. And then, where you have feedback, you give somebody a grade and you have feedback. I literally have, so I have a double screen. I'm lucky enough that I have an iMac here at the house. So I have the 2 screens. I have the Flip open that I'm listening to and watching. And I have that gradebook feedback open. And I am typing as I am listening and watching, giving them feedback. I know it's not required when you're teaching an online class to do it for every single one. I do not go out. However, I try to stay off of the Flipgrid myself, just because, again, just like when I've used discussion boards in the past, I feel like when I insert myself too much, then the students start crafting their responses to what they think I want them to say. And I don't want that, because that doesn't happen in a natural classroom, right? In a natural classroom, views are expressed. A teacher may come by, an instructor may come by and insert themselves for a moment. But generally, I want that conversation to happen peer-to-peer. And then anything that I might need to correct or extend them on, I generally do in that feedback. Now, I promise every semester, I promise the students that I will video respond them for their last assignment. So I actually do, and I do that privately. So I'm going to show you really quick how that's done. So I'm just going to pop into here. Oh, wait, this is not one that's set up. Hold on one moment. I need to actually pick one that's active for this. Oh, this one is still not. Let me just keep going to the one I should not be going to. Here we go. Let's pick this one. Let's do, as you can tell, this is midterm, right? I can do this right here. So I can video respond to my student. If you want it to be public, like if you want to praise them in public, you can do that. That everybody will see it. But I generally, for that last assignment, will flip it to private, and will then go ahead and add my comment. And it's just like, I can do it from my computer here. I can do it from a phone. I can do it from a tablet. Same thing. I know I've said a lot in a very short period of time. Again, anything else that I can show you?
It sounds like you use it for more than just discussion board posts. It sounds like you use it for presentations and other assignments. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, I use it for everything. So again, let me just, click into, and I can click into any of these. As I was just showing you how you can create a topic. So when we're creating that topic, and I'm just going to click on edit. I won't actually do anything here. But remember when we were doing that, I told you that image is going to be that thumbnail that comes up. If you notice too, when I flip to D2L, I have all my thumbnails with images too. I just need to have images. So again, this is what I call that module. This is what I call the prompt, right? And then that is what ends up looking like this to a student. And it just reminds them, hey, if you haven't noticed already, that I really want to encourage those video responses. So at some point I end up switching, I think after module 1, I end up switching. If you do a video response, you only have to do 1. If you do a written response, you have to do 2. I have to leave that open because sometimes people, you know, especially during like the hurricane, or maybe somebody is stationed overseas in an online class, they can only respond written, right? They can't use their video. But generally they find ways to do it. Like they insert an image of themselves and they talk over themselves, which I think is really interesting when they're stationed. They find ways around it. But yes, so the different prompts, again, like this one here will require, you know, they usually have to, if you notice, this is the academy one. This is the one where we had the gentleman who had the images around him, and then he would point and discuss them. I asked them to either try a presentation, do a hyperlink, or do the superimpose thing, which that's next level, the images around them. But usually once one of them does it, the rest of them do it. It's kind of like they set the bar for each other. So sometimes I have the regular prompt, I'll have the PowerPoint, and I'll have the hyperlink. I try and have them use every possible kind of presentation form within Flipgrid. Yes. And then they can respond in kind too. I haven't had that yet. I haven't had anybody respond with a PowerPoint. I have had students respond with a hyperlink. So, hey, you talked about this, but I saw this too that looks like your piece, and they'll hyperlink it back to the student. Did I answer your question, Candace?
Yeah, yeah. I had never used Flipgrid for a discussion post. I'd only used it for different projects. Like I use peer feedback in a writing course or a course about writing pedagogy, and they have to give each other peer feedback on a piece of writing. And they really enjoyed that. I was surprised. I used to do it in the discussion board, not as a discussion, a weekly discussion post, but we used the boards because that was the only way I knew to have them interact in an asynchronous course. But I found their responses so much more authentic and genuine, and they felt really supported by each other through that process. And so I found that to be really useful. I've also used it to connect with classrooms across the country and have students interact with each other. I used it in a course teaching diverse populations where they had to sort of have a better understanding of the other. And so they connected with second language learners in Greece. And that was, some of those videos were so heartwarming. So I think, the possibilities of connecting on an asynchronous level with this are really just endless. And I think the thing that impresses me so much about it is that authentic engagement that happens during the Flipgrid, because they actually, I'm jumping around here. I use them for class introductions in my online courses.
Oh, right.
And they love that. And I do respond to every one of them.
Yes.
I start off with my own introduction, and then I respond to every one of them. And they start to feel like a community. It's just easier with the audio and the visual and the voice intonations. And it's just, it can be used in so many different ways.
Again, this is Vegas, right? So like one of my overtime, I feel like I've been teaching a little bit. And so the names are a little bit like my kryptonite. Nicknames stick, but learning names, I feel like I've had so many names over the time that I really struggle with it. It should, of all the things, that shouldn't be the one, right? I can probably tell you what pictures they like or where they're from or things like that, but I do struggle with the names. So this really helps me. And this also reminds me, because again, what do you think I should know about you? How do you pronounce your name? That's a big deal too, right? If I'm going to say your name, let me say it correctly. Let me get your pronouns right. All of those things go into this. And I do believe that it does help. This is not like one of those weird introductions. I feel like they respond to each other. Like it's great. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I do think it has to do with this face thing, right? The fact that there's some kind of ownership, right? You're owning your own words, you're owning yourself, you're being seen, you're being heard. I think there's something to be said about that. I think I have mentioned, or at least you've seen, that I'm using this in my hybrid class. So like I'm using this in a class where students sit next to each other and see each other at least one of those days that week, right? So I can say, sometimes I get, when I have the in-class, I try on the days that I have them to do an activity in person, try to do something where we're engaged together. So again, even though I'm using this in that way online, I'm also still trying to get them in person to do things together as well, collaboratively. I have had less of a problem getting them to pair up, group up, whatever, than I've ever had in my life. You know, sometimes you always get, especially the introverts, right? They're kind of like, I don't want to have to do something, think, pair, share, or whatever. And I don't want to have to do that today. And it's so quick how they gravitate to each other. And I noticed the other week, sometimes they sit together in a class, right? But sometimes they're on the opposite ends of the room. Like the person that you know that they've kind of made friends here because of who they're responding to consistently, all of a sudden they're grabbing that person on the other side of the room. Hey, I like what you said last time. I think we have something to work on this time. It's kind of interesting. It's very different. I just wanted something for the online, right? I was really kind of focused on doing something for the online, but I have found it equally beneficial for students that see each other, that are in a classroom together. It really does change the group. And I welcome anybody at any time. If I know this is a quick class today. If you need my help, if you want me to walk you through setting this up or whatever, or you'd like to come watch one of my classes when I'm doing one of these activities, like obviously this is midway through the class, so they've definitely been doing this a lot, so it's a lot easier for them. But if anybody wants to pop in spring, look at my schedule, see what days I'm there. I'm happy to have anybody pop in at any point in time, just so you can get a feel. I would love for you to pop in and then pop in again later so you can see the difference, because it's palpable. You can feel it. You can feel the difference once they've engaged a couple times with Flipgrid, and then also seeing each other in class in that hybrid. There's a shift. It's very different from just teaching online and just teaching in the classroom. And I'm very excited by that. If you can't tell, I know I sound like a little bit of a nerd, but I'm very excited by that. And I'm hoping that it'll inspire some of you to try. Woody, have you tried this at all? Not to call you out. You're just one of my first faces.
No worries. No, I had just seen another presentation about it before. I've just used the, you know how people can record in D2L, like for discussion. Yes. I've had students do that, and I've tried that, but I haven't used Flipgrid for that.
How do you enjoy that? How is that working within course? That's the one I haven't tried, Woody. Is it easy? Is it working well?
It's very simple. Yeah, just, you know, when you open up the reply, it allows you to audio or video record. So I haven't done it with PowerPoint or anything like that, or anything visual. It's just, unfortunately, my face, you know, and then I've had students say that they've really enjoyed it. So I've been doing more, you know, for online classes, the face-to-face open sessions, and then those, just to try and experiment and mix things up a little bit. But I've found it very easy.
And again, that grade that you put in there would go to gradebook, correct? Yeah, that's the plus of that. The only thing is, right, if something were to go or that were to leave, then I have to be honest, I'm working out of that little place of fear that I've set all these things up, and if they disappear again, you know, I don't want to have to start back at zero. But if it works, it works. And I applaud you for doing that too, because again, I haven't even tried it in there. I just went straight to Flip. When VoiceThread disappeared, I went straight to Flip, and I haven't gone back. So I really should maybe play a little bit in there. But a definite plus to that is the integration to gradebook. So you don't have to actually pull up that second screen, as I mentioned before, to grade. I mean, it's a little tricky. I will show you something else. So when you're looking for responses, right? So here are all what I would consider initial posts, right? These are all initial posts on the left. These are all responses. So like I have to keep track of those, right? And I'm not going to lie, you know how I keep track of those? I have an old school attendance book. that I have that column that goes down, right? You have like the name horizontally, and you have the column that goes down vertically. I have a column for every module, check mark for initial, and 2 hash marks for peer responses. And if it's a video, I do a V. And in my feedback, I let them know, like, I recognize that you posted to whomever, like the 2 peer responses, I recognize that you posted a video. It's old school, but it works. And again, I'm so committed to Flipgrid that I'm willing to do that, but I can understand why some of you might be more apt to use one that's integrated into the gradebook because it's an extra step. Hopefully at some point it will be integrated. I believe, is Karen Hahn still on here? I believe that there is an option where you can integrate that to D2L. I'm not sure that's a thing that would happen this year, but there is a way to do it. Just hasn't happened for us.
Pam, I want to come back to something you said about classroom community. I've used it in a fully on-ground course, not hybrid, but fully on-ground as well. I've used it for like response to readings. And the nice thing about that is the student who isn't quick to raise their hand, but has a lot going on in their head, they're not rushed to respond. They respond in their own time, and then they post it. And then you can pull those up in class and say, look what Johanna said. You know, here's something I wanted to show everybody or wanted to bring to your attention. And so you're able to go back and sort of capture the summary of what students said, but you're capturing all of the students, not just those 3 who always raise their hands. And then one other thing is you can use it to have an invited guest. So I'm thinking, like, I see Dave Skanga, if he's working with ed leadership candidates and they want to learn something about a particular challenge in the principalship. And so he could have a principal come on in their own time, maybe present a story or, a situation or a scenario or case study. And then students can, in their own time, post questions and ask that person questions. That person could go back in. I've seen it done with scientists and with authors. And so, but as an asynchronous tool, it's just very easy to interact with, and people can come in their own time.
Yeah, I definitely think it is an introvert's friend for sure. And I have seen several come out of their shell in that way. Like I said, like some that might be hesitant. It's just that whole, right? It's a little bit of the acceptance too, right? Like, is somebody going to engage with me? Am I just going to be talking to myself? And then when they find like people are genuinely interested in engaging with what they have to say, I think that helps as well, right? Like you said, it just bolsters, right? It helps the student feel more empowered. And I also think that like we want to encourage, everybody has that voice, right? Everybody has that important thing to contribute to the class, and whatever tools we can use to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, like I'm all for it. I'm sure everybody in this, clearly everybody in this session is all for that. I know we're like only like 40 or so minutes in, but again, like other than walking you through, if you wanted to set something up or you have questions in how this works, again, if you want to pose a question to me, like how could you use it in your class? What are the different ways that you might be able to use an assignment? Again, I didn't initially think that I would be using it for anything other than discussions, as you pointed out, Candace, but it's worked out that it can work for so many different prompts, so many different needs. And I will say this is not to say that my students aren't writing in the class. They still have to do an exhibition critique. They still have to do some write-ups, but I think that they really prefer this mode in this way. And again, I like it because I'm a very visual person. A lot of times I also find myself commenting on, like we saw Zaina had like lights in her room, or like students have art in their room that I'm like, hey, by the way, did you notice that this is related to that, style that we discussed with this artist? It just lends itself to extending that conversation too, right? Or maybe a person, while they are connecting to a prompt and they're connecting their response to a prompt, they're also connecting to a person because somebody in their room or in their car has like a Batman something. And they're like, oh, you also like Batman? Like, we're always looking for all different types of connections and all different levels in that way. And I think this is another way to do that.
Hey, Pam, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
This is Dave. Yeah.
Hi, Dave.
I do work with students that are, they're not millennials, they're basically older. And so as a way of introducing it, it seems simple enough, but if you had to introduce it to someone who probably has a little bit of fear related to technology, the simplest way to do that, I mean, I heard what Candace said in terms of maybe have a guest speaker and have them just respond to the guest speaker. But like, how would, what would you say is the simplest form to get people to at least understand what the platform does?
So again, are you talking about from a instructor perspective, or are you talking about from a student perspective?
No, from an instructor because I'm working with like graduate and doctoral level students, and some of them, they're a little bit shy around what seems simple to a 20-year-old, seems really a challenge to them. And so what's the simplest way? What would you do to sort of say, all right, let me introduce it to you in a very simple way just to get you started?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is, again, this intro. The intro, I think, is probably the easy, like, instead of that, most of us have done the intro, right, in classes, both as an instructor and as a student. And I just think that whole turning on your camera, here's who I am. These are the things I like. Here are my pronouns. Here's how you pronounce my name. I'm excited to be in this class, right? End of story. That's quick. That's quick, down and dirty, easy. I really do. And I understand what you're saying. You're talking about an older demographic. I will say in my online classes, I have very much that demographic occurring. Not only do I have that demographic, but I have not that our students aren't working, and some of them do have families they're responsible for on campus. But I think definitely in the online environment, we have individuals that are balancing work, home, and school. And I think they appreciate the quick, what I would call down and dirty version that this offers, right? Quick, turn on the camera. Most people have FaceTimed, right? Most people have FaceTimed. My dad didn't know what it was. He always used to call it open face, but he still knew how to do it. Because it's true, you click in the opens and there's a face, right? They still know. I think that's the first, this hello, I am is probably the easiest start. And then you just grow from there. And I have to be honest, that is how my classes are set up. Starts out very easy. And then every module, we're getting harder and harder and harder, right? I don't hit them with that PowerPoint module 2. Right? If you notice that PowerPoint isn't coming in till module 4, and there's a good chance I've already modeled it, or somebody else has modeled it, or I've stuck something in there. So we're building layers. We're not going to jump from this to, hey, here's a hyperlink, and here's this, and also here's some pretty things you can put in your frame as you're talking. We're not going to go like that. And honestly, you decide, right? As the instructor, as a professor, you're going to decide how you want that done, and how quickly or how very, very strategically you're going to place those. And you may just go from this, right, introductions to responding, right, back and forth, to maybe just having a PowerPoint. The PowerPoint is the pinnacle for you. It's not a hyperlink. It's not a voiceover production. It's none of that, right? You get to decide. And I think that's the beauty of this. You decide. And you can change it. We all know we change it. We know we have a plan every semester, but we know we have to adjust to the class that we have. We have to meet them where they're at. So if we know that's not working, we figure out something else, right? We might have to keep it basic. But I think if you start out with the hello and just the, what I would call response kind of situation and get them used to that, you'd be surprised how quickly they're willing to do it. Of course, will there be technology issues? 100%. Like there will be times when people cannot turn their video on, or they're having an issue, or they can't, and they need to do it. We have workarounds. Did that help? Did that help? Anybody else?
I
Hey,
did
Pam,
the question, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Okay. I did post a question on the chat. With Flip, have you used any of the features like exporting the data? Because I see on there it has export data and print QR codes. Have you used them in your face-to-face courses or?
I haven't done the QR codes, but I'm getting ready to, because you can also do that whole QR code for virtual gallery.
Mhm.
I have not done export data.
Okay.
My understanding is that once you have built, like I've built these, I
Mhm.
can export that data at any point in time. Is Madi still here? Madi, we should probably talk about what I might be able to do with that data. I haven't even looked to see what that looks like or where it can go, but clearly that will help in, if somebody asks me how effective, right? If we want to go into the, like, how effective, how has this been used? How can we analyze the data for future? 100%. I guess at some point, if there's data export, we might be able to do like those key assignments that we have in UE. We might be able to gather the data in here, which I haven't tried yet. I'm going to say that my key assignment does not occur in here, essentially, right? It's the exhibition critique. And while they talk about it, I want them to talk about the exhibition. That's one of the prompts. The actual grading of it is not occurring in here on Flip, but that's a thought. I could move toward that and let you know how that goes.
Yeah.
That would be next level. That would be next level.
Are there any other features on Flip that stand out to you that students like or that you like yourself?
I love the hyperlink. So I start pushing that right away, because again, when somebody's talking about an artist, that I can very often tell, like those responses, like you can tell sometimes there's 2 comments, 1 comment, 4 comments, all of a sudden you'll have 10 comments. Ooh, the people were really moved by whatever it was that this person featured. Then you like communicating back and forth with hyperlinks. Hey, I saw this piece did that. I love that. Especially, again, I'm talking about visual arts. This could be also relate to like research, right? For whatever your subject area is. Hey, I saw this. Have you thought about that? Right? I love that hyperlink because that's a quick drop. It's almost like an airdrop to somebody, right? Hey, look, hey, this, oh, back and forth that way. I think that's exciting. I like the hyperlinks. I also love when Tyler did that, where you can have the images and you can just talk about it. It's like around, he says he loved to do that. He said it was so fun because he could see the pictures surrounding him as he was doing the presentation. He's like, this is so cool. They're just floating, But I love that. I love when people, obviously you can't just talk about an image and not show it. So finding the different ways of showing it, whether it's a hyperlink, whether it's included on the screen, whether it's a PowerPoint, however it is that they're going to do that.
I've used it some in my class. I teach a hybrid class as well. Last semester, I used it a little bit more because I had one day that was asynchronous. This time I'm not doing that, although I did miss a day, had to be out. So I actually set up a Flipgrid. That's what was for that particular day that we were supposed to be in class. One of the features I do like in there is that you can set up with a video. So we had a video that we'd have normally watched in class. And so I had the students watch it, but it's built directly into the Flipgrid, and then they can comment on it right there. So I told them, I said, you had to list off 3 takeaways or whatever from the video, and they ended up recording their own, and then they had to respond to 2 other students' posts as well. But one of the cool things I like about it, I actually had a student in my class last semester that was on the cross country team and the track team. And there was one day where he actually posted his message while he was sitting on the track, and you could just tell, like,
yeah,
in a track and field event, that's all day, and you're sitting around for 5 minutes of running, and you're there for 4 hours or something. So he got a chance on his phone to get it out and do his post and Flip, which was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool,
I love that. It's not actually in this group. It was in a previous group that I tested it out with, but we had a challenge. This was for the Giants class. And there's always this challenge where it's like called a scavenger hunt. They have to find some architectural features or a sculpture on campus. And I love that they would literally walk to it and be like, hey, here's the monk over in front of the library. Let's talk about what this is, this time capsule, whatever. It was cool, right? So they kind of felt like they were on the news and they were doing a feature. I love that too. You didn't get to see that here because that was one of the first ones. And again, like I said, I changed emails, so it's not saved here. But yeah, I love that. I have never used it for the video, but I think that that is so handy. And I love that you mentioned that because a lot of times we have to be out. Something has happened. Real life has happened and we have to be out and we still need them engaged. And like, this is a way, right? This is a way to post that video and you're going to get those real-time, asynchronous real-time, right? At that moment, real-time response to when they're watching it. I love that too. I hadn't thought about that. Because again, I'm doing the in-person asynchronous for my hybrid so that most of the watching that they do is going to be on the asynchronous day. But I'm starting to think that if I want to really make sure that they saw it, if I feel like they haven't engaged with that video, that would be a way to ensure that they did, right? I mean, tricky,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it works.
Yeah.
It works.
I found that their responses were much more genuine and thoughtful than they are when they're typing it. I think they're more aware of being seen and they just seem more engaged. And I've just found their responses to be much richer. It was a huge difference in the responses on the peer feedback. And I would always give them structure. So whatever I expected them to do in Flip, for peer feedback, they might have to comment on 2 things about the writing that were, really well done or that they liked. One thing that, they have a question about, and one suggestion to make it even stronger. So they have, specific things they have to accomplish in the post. And then I really like the feature where there's a little Post-it note that they can put on their screen that they've got their notes on there so they can look at the screen and talk to the video, but they've got their notes right there and they know what it is they want to say. So they're not like all discombobulated and just rambling on and on and on. And then one more thing I wanted to say, I never give them 10 minutes because, for some people, they'll just take the full amount of time. And I don't want to spend that much time grading them or listening. So I limit them depending on and it's a real challenge because how succinct can you be in 2 minutes? And some assignments I give them 90 seconds. But I also tell them, if you're really passionate, you've got more to say, you can always do a second one because they can add on. They can do as many as they want. I don't limit the number, but I try to keep them, concise so that I'm not, just drugged down by, endless minutes of watching these videos. I want them to be, on point.
As I said, I will find like I've left it to 10 and I do that for collection. It never goes that long. I feel like the longest I've ever had is probably like 4. And that was someone like seriously like knocking out everything, like bringing points to and that was more the film class. It was not in the curves class. It was film where they went like point by point. And actually it was in support of somebody. That wasn't an initial post. Cool. That was somebody respond. I have not used it for peer response, but I think this would be super helpful for like English 121 and 122. So again, I'd like to get like someone who teaches that class in my department to see how they would use that for peer review. I think it would make it a lot, easier and maybe even more palatable because I think always those red marks on paper, I always say it makes it look like your paper's bleeding. Like when we do that, accept changes, track changes, it still kind of looks like somebody has messed with your paper. I think that that kind of peer response thing might soften that a little bit and make it a little more palatable. And, for anybody that might be, taken aback by somebody's comments, I think seeing somebody's face when they say it, and let's admit everybody here, right? So the culture with the texting, I think a lot of those interpersonal communications are a little bit lacking in some of the younger students that we have. And so any way that we can kind of promote that kind of face-to-face communication instead of the written word. There's so many things that can be misinterpreted from that word because you don't know that person, right? The context is missing. This way we have a face, we have facial expressions. We're also teaching them in that way. And I think that is so important. It's so important. Again, these are transferable skills that they can use no matter what their subject area is, no matter what field they're going to go into. They need to be able to have that. We have about 5 minutes left. Anything else that I might be able to be of assistance with? I want to thank you all so very much for being here and engaging with me today. I hope that I've given you some ideas of how this might work for you. And again, just a reminder, if there's something that I can do to help you personally, set something up or talk about how you might be able to integrate this into your class, I am more than happy to do that.
You can always reach out to Pam or the CETL is, we're happy to help out. Pam has offered to do a workshop also in January. So sit down, bring your computer and she can help you out. And just to keep in mind, Flipgrid is free and it should always be free. It's owned by Microsoft now. They bought it out. And so it shouldn't be something you have to worry about getting sucked into and then later having to pay a premium price because now they only let 10 students in or something like that, which Padlet has done. But anyway, so we're glad you came, and I really want to thank Pam for being here today and offering and her expertise and sharing her experience with the tool.
Thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful, it's Tuesday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And again, if I can be of any assistance, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you again.